Am I wrong? Throwayak01827 says. Am I wrong for not giving my BF sex whenever he wants? My BF and I have been together for a decade and we have a 2-year-old. My sex drive has went down a lot in the recent years. There was a time I didn't have sex with him in a year and he couldn't control himself because of the sexual frustration and he cheated on me with some random girl half our age. When I found out about the cheating he blamed me and said it was my fault because I stopped having sex with him. He said he does everything right and I'm the problem. It is true he is an active and involved father, but I just don't want to have sex. It is rare when I'm actually in the mood. I did see a doctor and it's normal when you start to age and you're not a horny teenager anymore. Sex is just not what I want to do. I will rarely want to do it. My BF blamed me because it's my job to have sex with him whenever he wants, or else I'm just asking to get cheated on. Always Right 12 says. It is not your job to have sex with him whenever he wants. You should never have sex you don't want. You shouldn't stay with a cheater either. However, he also shouldn't stay in a sexless relationship. Better for both of you to end it. Mitcha Sound says. Yep, there's a gap, so why did Sir ravine between sex whenever he wants and no sex for a year? I don't condone his cheating, but when someone refuses to have sex with you for a year after a previously healthy sex life, it's got to leave that person feeling totally rejected and unloved. My own sex drive has slowed down a lot now. I'm cruising towards 50 and busy with work and kids, but no sex for a year. Doglady1342 says. This is off topic a little bit, but I don't think age has much to do with it. I'm guessing that your busy life or a hormone imbalance has more to do with the decline in sex drive if it has decreased quite a lot. I say this as a 54-year-old woman. My sex drive has increased, if anything, since I retired in 2020. And the men my age that I talk to about this type of thing still have strong and healthy drives as well. They want it most every day, if not more. And yes, I do talk with my male friends about things like this. Potrevolutionary 160 says. You aren't obligated to give your boyfriend sex and I absolutely don't condone cheating. However, you can't unilaterally decide you are going to be in a celibate relationship and expect him to stay. You need to have an honest conversation, and if you are taking intimacy off the table, he has a decision to make. Seaworth in Essia 2407 says. You can't unilaterally decide you are going to be in a celibate relationship and expect him to stay. This is an important part. I think BF should have ended the relationship if nothing was going to change. But this is correct. Fimherafant says. Also, are you on birth control? I was on the patch after my last baby. I'm 35 today and she is 4 now. My first kid I had at 20. I never dealt with a drop in sex drive. Not for my second kid at 28 either. Also, all the time I'd been on birth control before, I'd never dealt with this. The depot shot used to make me have a light period almost all the time. The pill I sucked at taking at the same time daily, so I went with the patch. I became extremely anxious and also depressed. Like anxious to the point of sweating, sweaty palms, sick to my stomach, and outbursts. I had no sex drive at all. At all. My relationship was one-sided, and I thought it was because of that, and I was tired. That probably contributed, but I also had no desire to even masturbate, and I couldn't remember the last time I was horny. I didn't even have a desire for, or much reaction from receiving oral. Even when I wanted the intimacy with my partner, I wasn't physically horny. I probably did have PPD as well, and I can confidently say that I had PPD after each pregnancy, and it was at least 2 years before I started feeling like myself again. I also experienced depression during pregnancy, which I think is more common than they talk about and should be more researched and addressed. But one day I was looking up the patch, because at the time I was still smoking cigarettes, and was nearing 35. I wanted to see what the risk of blood clots were for me. What I discovered, and hadn't known, before in all my years of being a woman, having kids, and being on birth control on and off, since I was a teenager, was that for some women, some birth control medications can cause them heightened anxiety and depression, and can cause their sex drive to plummet. I had a light bulb moment, and realized OMG, this is what's been happening to me. I have been off of birth control for about a year or two now. I feel so much better. Like I'm horny again. Not like I was in my 20s of course, but I am. And before I was almost repulsed by sex. It was like a chore. I never made my man go a year without it lol, more like a month, maybe 2 at the most, but it was a chore. Now, we have sex at least once a week. We have to schedule it, because we both work opposite shifts and our youngest is 4, and up our butts, but I schedule it, because I want it. Not gonna lie, we also randomly and unplanned took some mat together one night and had some real breakthroughs about our relationship individually, and we just really bonded. And we had some awesome, wild, long uninhibited sex. We ed like rabbits, and it was great. We were home all night, just the 2 of us joining together in both drug and sex induced ecstasy lol. We smoke weed, but we don't even really drink and definitely don't do other drugs. But his brother who is in his 20s came over one night with his GF, and he had some with him, and just gave us like 5 single stacks, so we took 2.5 each after they left. Just for shits and gigs. But I had no idea how therapeutic it would be for us and our relationship. I'm not saying y'all should do this. My general advice to random people would be you shouldn't, actually. But I just thought I'd share that experience. It came from left field and surprised me with its effectiveness. I'd like to do some type of psychedelic or hallucinogen with my partner once or twice a year. Hoping to do some shrooms next, but seriously, if you're on birth control, do some research, or talk to your doc about other options or maybe going off of it. Sure, we have to track my cycle now, and he has to pull out, and we have to be very careful. It took me a while to not be scared of getting pregnant, because having another baby, well, I'd rather die. He's getting a vasectomy this year though, and we'll still track my cycle, and be careful as hell. And I'm a birth control advocate, and I'm pro-choice 150%. This isn't some propaganda from an anti-choicer. But it affected me in a really bad way. You should at least go back to your doctor. I'm mad they told you that you're not supposed to be horny like you were in your 20s. Going a year without sex, when you have a willing partner and a safe relationship with minimal risk of STDs, that's not normal. Either you weren't honest with your doctor or they dismissed you. Talk to another doctor or push back on yours. You could have a thyroid issue, hormonal imbalance, probably a. And Andy 96 says, I'm a woman and I would never stay with someone who doesn't wanna have sex with me for a year. He was still wrong to cheat though, he should have ended it amicably. Am I wrong? Spring Correct 1002 says, or for not letting my daughter stay home alone. I'm either, but holla for not leaving my daughters home alone. I have 3 daughters 26F, 14F and 11 female. It's summer for us, so we planned week-long family trip to Germany and France. We were planning to include my daughters in the trip, but they didn't want to go because they wanted to play video games. They are big gamers. We tried to convince them by showing pictures and talking about how much fun it would be, but they kept refusing, so we agreed. I planned to send her to her older sister's house, but my daughters wanted to stay home alone as they wanted to play the games at her house, but I refused as I think they are too young for staying alone for a week. My oldest has a TV but all of them will be using it, so my daughters won't be able to play much, and they don't have a TV in the guest room. My daughter said she'll miss out on games with her online friends and begged me to let them stay alone, but I think they are too young for that, especially the 11-year-old. I told my daughters they could play on their phones and the Nintendo Switch, but not on the PS5. I asked my daughter if they could play. She said they could play on the TV for a bit, but the whole family will be using it, so not for long. My brother and some of my friends are saying they are old enough to be left alone, and I'm being overprotective, while my husband thinks we should force them to come on the trip or take away all their electronics for the week. If they choose not to come, I think that's too far, but I'm wondering if my daughters are old enough to be left alone. Am I the butthole? Dat Boyston says, why giving them the option to tell you no? Lokipani says, seriously? They are minors. It would be, hey kids, we are going on a trip as a family. Both my husband and adult daughter are gamers. Neither would dare tell me I don't want to go. I want to stay home, sit on my ass, and play video games. Murray DZ0308 says, the elephant in the room is these girls are gaming addicts. If they refuse to leave the house to go to Europe, they need some serious detoxification. Judge Jones says, no, they are not old enough to be left alone while you're in another country for a whole week. Frankly, I would be forcing those children to go on that vacation with me, because wanting to play video games is not a valid excuse for skipping out on life. So many young adults these days don't even know how to function without playing a video game. Maybe you should be thinking about that. I agree with your husband 100%. Budges19 says, I mean, this sounds like addiction levels of dependency. Thinalcon Sequence 70 says, NTA. 14 and 11 are old enough to be left alone for a few hours, but not a week. They can go with you or to their sisters, but hell no to staying home alone so they can video game. JJJ68548 says, 14 and 11 are too young to stay home alone. Definitely not wrong to make other arrangements for them. Hurling Day says, they don't get a choice. They go on the vacation without any electronics. There is an entire real world out there. Show it to them. Glumzakini 2029 says, they are definitely not old enough. Bring them on the trip. I'd also recommend chatting with a family therapist about how to navigate screen time with your kids. I know it's their summer, but they should be getting out and enjoying being outside or doing other activities with friends too. Or going on an amazing trip to Germany and France. What I wouldn't do to go on a trip like that. Acidister Fish says, not wrong. Not for a week, absolutely not. That's too long for that age. I'd let the 14-year babysitter the 11 years for a date night, but that's about it. Do you have any other family who could come stay with them for the week? That would be the only way I would let them stay home. Or, they have their two choices in front of them, sisters or go. It's unbelievable to me that opportunities and adventures to see the world are now lost to sit in front of a TV for a week. Mommy Q says, I feel like the 11-year-old is writing this. Chaos 841 says, I love playing video games, but when it came time to go on a trip, I told my online friends I was gonna be offline for a week and would catch up with them later, and enjoyed my time hiking and swimming. These kids need to get outside and experience life a bit. They are too young to stay alone and too young to be sat in front of a TV for a solid week. With Love 07 says, wait, kids have options now? When my mom said we are going on a trip and I wasn't allowed to stay in the house, guess what? I went on the trip. Those girls are too addicted to their games. You offered options, and they said no, and are willing to stay alone in a house just because of games. I'll gladly go on the trip with you, although I have twins, 3 months old. I hope that's not a problem and they have passports. Vinci79 says, absolutely not. Also, make them go with you. They're gonna hate you right now anyway. When they're older they'll appreciate it, and how you have them opportunities other kids didn't have. I traveled a lot in my youth. Lived in Germany for 2 years in my 20s. Going to another country and experiencing another culture will be one of the best experiences they have to shape their future. A year from now none of their friends will even be playing the same games they are playing now, but they'll still be jealous of your daughter's trip to Europe. Adorable Reaction 887 says, NTA for the question asked, but I think the bigger problem you have is how both girls have an unhealthy balance between life/family and gaming. Not wanting to go on holiday cause they can't game, or stay at sister's cause they'd not be able to play as much/have their own TV should be a massive cause of concern. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.